Have you ever seen one of those massive offshore oil rigs or a sprawling new airport and just kind of stopped and thought, how in the world did they build that? I mean, you've got thousands of people from hundreds of different companies. How do all those pieces fit together without the whole thing just falling apart? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. We're pulling back the curtain on the secret art that stops these mega projects from becoming, you guessed it, mega disasters. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this one very high-stakes question, right? When you're playing with $1 billion budget and the complexity is just off the charts, one tiny miscommunication, that can snowball into a catastrophic failure of cost, schedule, and even safety.
And here's just a little taste of that complexity. It's organized chaos. Let's take the Lower Zakum offshore project in Abu Dhabi. That's not just one project, no way. It's split into at least 7 huge packages, everything from building an entire island to installing all the offshore gear. So you've got multiple giant engineering contractors, dozens of specialist subcontractors, and a supply chain that stretches across the globe, all trying to coordinate perfectly. It's like building a city where every single piece is moving.
So, listen, here's the absolute key. The biggest danger isn't that one team is going to mess up their part. The real risk, the one that keeps project managers up at night, is in the gaps and the overlaps between all those teams. You know, where does my job end and yours begin? Who's giving me the final data for that pipeline connection? If you don't manage those in-between spaces, you are asking for big trouble.
And that trouble, it comes with a very, very specific price tag. When you just leave those connections between teams to chance, you don't get collaboration, you get chaos. So the Construction Industry Institute, or CII, they actually studied this exact problem. They went in and analyzed a bunch of projects to see what happens when there's no formal disciplined plan for managing these connection points. And the number they came back with, it's pretty staggering.
18%. Let that sink in. That's the average cost overrun on major projects that don't have a formal process for this. On a $1 billion job, that's an extra $180 million just gone. Wasted on rework, delays, and arguments, all because of bad coordination.
But what if you could manage that space? What if you could take that chaos and turn it into a controlled, predictable process? Well, you can. And that discipline is called interface management.
So an interface is just the official name for that shared boundary. It's the point of exchange. It might be a physical connection, like where 2 giant pipes meet, or it could be a technical one, like swapping critical design data. Basically, it's any point where Team A's work has to line up perfectly with Team B's work.
The CII puts it perfectly. It's about managing the communications, the relationships, and, this is the most important part, the deliverables between everybody involved. It's not just about talking. It's about making sure the right stuff, whether it's information or a physical part, gets to the right people at exactly the right time. And this is so important. It's not a one-time thing. It's a dynamic life cycle. Managing an interface is a living process that grows and changes right along with the project, from the first sketches on a computer all the way to the final bolt getting tightened out on site. And this process flows through 4 key stages. First up, identification. Think of this as the detective phase. Early on, engineers from all the teams get in a room and literally map out every single point where their work touches somebody else's. And this is continuous because as the design evolves, new connection points always pop up. Next, stage 2, recording. Every single interface they find gets logged in a master list, the interface register. This thing becomes the project's Bible. It's the single source of truth, updated weekly, so there's no room for any he said, she said confusion. Then we hit the action stage, monitoring and controlling. Here, an interface manager acts like a project's quarterback, constantly tracking progress, chasing down information, making sure every handoff happens on schedule. They're there to stop a tiny delay from snowballing into a huge problem. And finally, you get to the closeout. This is the formal sign-off, the digital handshake. An interface is only officially done when a written agreement is signed by both parties, confirming all their responsibilities have been met.
The big takeaway here is that this isn't some checklist you tick off at the beginning and forget about. Nope, it is a constant cycle of identifying, tracking, and resolving these connection points that runs from day 1 of engineering all the way through to the very end of construction.
Okay, so how do they actually do all this? Well, project managers use a very specific set of tools, basically a formal language made of documents to turn all that potential chaos into crystal clear clarity.
It really breaks down into 3 key terms:
You've got the interface point, or IP. That's just the official name for the shared border itself. Then for each IP, you create an interface agreement, or IA. Think of this like a signed treaty between two contractors. It spells out exactly who does what they have to deliver, and by when. And if someone has a question or needs more detail, they issue an interface query, or IQ. This is like a diplomatic cable. It's a formal, trackable request that makes sure everyone is working off the exact same page.
So, when you put this tough, rigorous process together with these super clear tools, the payoff is, well, it's huge. You literally go from that world of expensive chaos to one of controlled, predictable success.
All right, let's go back to that CII research. We saw that ugly 18% cost overrun for projects that were just winging it. Now let's see what happens with the projects that actually put in the work and use the disciplined interface management system.
4%. That's it. The average cost growth plummets from 18% all the way down to just 4%. That is an absolutely massive difference, and it represents millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars saved.
I mean, just look at it. The data here is crystal clear. The difference between guessing and planning, between chaos and control, it's the difference between that tall red bar and that short green one. It's pretty much the best argument you could ever make for why this is so critical.
And the wins go way beyond just the money. When you have a system like this, you get clear accountability. Everybody knows exactly what their job is. You slash expensive rework because you spot clashes in the design phase, not when you're trying to build the thing. And you make sure there are no gaps and no overlaps, which protects your schedule and the technical integrity of the whole project.
So here's the bottom line. Interface management doesn't get rid of complexity. That's impossible. What it does is way more powerful. It takes that complexity and transforms it from this scary, uncontrollable risk into a well-defined, manageable process. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought, right? If this structured way of managing the spaces between teams can tame a billion-dollar beast of a project, where else could we use it? In our own companies? Our organizations? Heck, even our own personal projects? What kind of expensive gaps could be closed just by taking a minute to formally manage the in-between?